We're live.
All right, welcome to the TdS halftime show. It's the whole Tulsa halftime show. Seth, the Tulsa Golden Hurricane lead 31-20 over the USF Bulls.
Nailed my prediction right before we nailed it. 31-21.
Yep.
We were talking first halves, right?
Right.
Okay. I'll have a second half prediction here soon.
The offense looks pretty competent. The offense looks like a top 50 offense.
Yeah.
The defense looks like they're the worst defense in the country. So
really...
status quo for the Bulls tonight on this chilly Friday night in Tulsa.
Maintained. Yes. This is a brutal watching experience, I got to tell you.
The last 3 minutes, bro, took forever.
That's not even that was awful, but the frustrating part is
all of it.
Well, yeah, a lot of it, but I really think Tulsa wanted to quit. They did not want to be there early. It really looked like it.
Yep.
You start up 10-0. If you get a stop there and go up 17-0, I think they pack it in. And of course they break off a big run. It's 10-7. You go down the field and you got a chance to make it 17-7, and you commit a stupid penalty 10 yards behind the play, have to settle for a field goal. Then you get a stop on defense. This defense getting 2 stops kind of tells you that Tulsa was not into the game early. You had a chance to kind of snatch it early because I don't think they seemed really out of it.
Yeah.
And then once the muffed punt kind of turned the game a little bit. Now, the defense, I don't think would have gotten is not going to get many stops in most games. That's what we talked about before the game. You're thinking turnovers, but you do not want to be -2 in the turnover battle with this defense. You got no shot because you're just giving extra possessions. So basically, the 2 stops have been wiped out by the 2 turnovers.
Yeah, basically, Sean Atkins, who's been pretty sure-handed throughout his career as a punt returner, especially in relief of Xavier Weaver, muffs it, and Tulsa capitalized on it because they have a halfway decent offense. Their true freshman quarterback looks pretty good. I think he's 13 of 19. Throwing the ball, he's slinging the pill around a little bit, and then De'Eric Prince is kind of the guy we thought he would be for the most part. I think he may be close to 100 yards, if not already over 100 yards on the evening. And, it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, the USF offense has played, it's kind of, they've punted once, right? And then the turnovers, you can see they've gained 81% of available yards, which is nuts.
That's insane.
Tulsa's gained 79%, and it gets the 2 short field turnovers. So, like we said, the turnovers negated the stops. 2 stops from this defense in one game is like a miracle.
It really
and
is.
Then you basically
really
just
nothing short of.
You give them right back with the turnovers. A winning is somewhat a learned. Is somewhat kind of a learned behavior, and they have not learned it over the past 3 years, right? They haven't had enough chances at it. But that's just not winning. You just can't give the game away when you're a 2-touchdown underdog, which they had a legitimate chance to be up 17-7 with the ball if they don't have these two big self-inflicted wounds. The penalty,
right?
Because they were just rolling right down the field. The penalty that puts you in 2nd and 25, not even like a holding penalty, but a dead ball after the play penalty. And then you get put into the fumble where you give them the ball in, prime scoring position. So you take those 2 plays out, it's 17-7. You have the ball. If you go down and score like the offense has been doing, the game's over. You can kind of, because I think Tulsa quit. So that's, I think, the frustrating thing is you're not even playing a team that's really wants to be there, and they're still 99th percentile in every single offensive category. Pretty much, that's
I mean, and that's such the annoying part, right? like you mentioned, those two defensive stops, like we talked about it, like I mentioned it on Twitter, like catastrophic, right? Your defense finally gets a stop and you muff the ensuing punt. Of course they're going to score. Like you just flat out know they're going to score. And then honestly, Brad Cecil's snap to Mikey Dukes was super low on the ground. He had to basically try to fall on a worm burner, and they recover and go down and score. And that, I mean, that's basically your ball game. That's the difference right there. And it's really tough. I'm really, the thing we haven't talked about, 5 minutes and 40 seconds into this thing is Seth, Byron Brown's pretty good.
Yeah, we've been talking about him since spring football, and that's kind of what we heard and reported back then. And then during the summer, we kept commenting on how, and everyone kind of makes fun of it, but the grit score stuff, like when you have a freshman that is coming in, a freshman quarterback that's coming in and is one of your top like workout guys, that's kind of a signal that sends up a signal to me as a former coach, like, okay, this is interesting. And then as soon as they took Bohannon, I'm pretty sure I said, and we all kind of, we talked it out, that we thought they took Bohannon. We'll take these off. They took Bohannon because they didn't care if McLean left because of Brown.
Basically.
Because what we heard in the spring about how much they liked him, and then you heard DePrada talking about it this week coming into the game. Like since he's stepped on campus, he's been a stud. So that's kind of when Bohannon came in. We all said this is probably means good things about Byron Brown.
Right.
And he's showing it in this first half. He's playing unbelievable.
What is he? 11 for 11, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, 40 yards on the ground, something like that.
An 11.34 EPA right now, which is pretty good.
That's pretty damn good. He's been solid. He's making the right reads. I think it was on the first possession, or maybe the third possession, where he actually gets sacked on the player, like a rush of one, but it's a third down play. The middle linebacker jumps the snap. Mikey Dukes does make the block, but the thing that I was really impressed about was freshman quarterback, they're peeling out real quick. He stepped up into the pocket, reset, and tried to uncork something, wasn't there, and then went off and tried to at least get back to the line of scrimmage. At least that was something in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a little different. If this is what he does when this sort of thing happens, when the pocket breaks down slightly, you get Seth, as a former quarterback, I'm sure blitzes up the middle suck ass. Would be a fair assessment. For him to be able to readjust, get back on plane, and still kind of look downfield before, deciding to tuck in and try to get back to the line of scrimmage. That was the thing. I was like, okay, he may have it as a quarterback in college football.
He throws a really catchable ball too. He's got arm strength, but he's not like throwing these balls with insane velocity where they're tough to catch. Everything's pretty catchable. I thought his most impressive play to me, is I think it was the third down on the first drive. USF runs I think a corner out and a speed out, and Tulsa I think the corner carries the corner out for a second, but he's really hoping that Brown throws the speed out so he can jump it for an interception. He's just kind of waiting there. He's kind of baiting it, and he doesn't take the bait, and he throws the corner out over his head to Atkins for like a 12-yard gain for first down. That, like him recognizing that the corner's squatting there, and he wants me to throw that speed out so he can pick it or crush my receiver. Seeing that quick and just kind of, all right, I'm going to take the corner, and then delivering the ball, like layering a ball over a defensive player in front of a safety for an easy catchable pass. I mean, he showed you kind of everything you want, and he showed some, like, they're not afraid to run him either, which is kind of interesting.
That was, it wasn't the run that he like broke off for like 30 yards. It was the one kind of up the middle. I think it was like on a second or third down.
Where
he only gets like 5. Yeah, it was a quarterback. I think it was a quarterback counter on like 3rd and 12, and he gets like 5 yards, but he gets popped at the end there. I'm like, oh, so they don't really they care, but they're not scared to run them.
I think they're just trying to. I think offensively they know, and this is what we've talked about for a few weeks now. And you've seen it. You've seen it kind of play out tonight. Like the margin for error is super thin on offense. So I think they're just trying to win. Is like they're going to do as much as they can to win on offense.
Right.
If that means they got to run the quarterback, even though if he gets hurt, they got to go to a walk on. That's what they're going to do. So
because what do they care? They probably won't be there next year anyway.
Yeah. So that's what they're going to. So I like offensively great playing. You're playing to win, and if when the defense is so poor. You don't have a large margin for error offensively. So like a bad snap that turns into a fumble, a penalty behind the play, like that kind of stuff just that will get you beat when your defense is going to be able to get enough stops. So
yeah.
And just not to be a wet blanket, but Tulsa's defense is really bad.
Atrocious.
And we said it before the game,
Equally
they're really bad. They're in the hundreds and everything. So, but like for a freshman on the road, awesome stuff. You couldn't expect any better. I mean, literally,
right.
He hasn't missed a pass, and he hasn't put the ball in harm's way either. So, seems like a pretty smart kid too, in terms of like you said, kind of being able to readjust his eyes downfield, but also not like just chucking that ball up as soon as he sees the blitzer. That's why he's not missed a pass yet because he's not really forcing any.
Right. And if you had told me before the game, hey, USF will have 2 first-half turnovers with a freshman quarterback, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Probably an interception, maybe a botched snap or something like that. Nope, it hasn't been his fault. And I mean, we'll see what happens. It's been interesting to see the running back situation kind of play out. Brian Battie hasn't gotten as many touches as I would have thought. There was some consternation that maybe he got dinged up on, I think it was the touchdown flea flicker. So we'll keep an eye on that as we get into the second half. But he has 9 carries
for 66.
66. So he's at about
900.
There, right? Yeah, he's like at 940-ish right now for the season, 60 yards away from 1,000 yards. So we'll see what happens the rest of this game. If they hold him out, or if they try to be a little bit more careful with him. But I mean, all in all, once again, the offense has been fun, impressive in spurts, in moments. The defense has been
depressing
for sure. There's a lot of Meredith Palmer to Michael Scott vibes with this defense. You are the reason I drink. You are the reason I live to forget. Cheers. I mean, it is really bad, and it's not getting fixed anytime soon.
No, like that's why I think when we said like unless Ernie Sims is like the reincarnation of Buddy Ryan and the 85 Bears, like it's not getting fixed this year. And guess what? It's not getting fixed this year. Their hope is to get some turn, like first drive, almost get a pick. Their hope is to force some turnovers.
Yeah.
Now the unfortunate part is like sometimes you can cause fumbles and stuff when you gang tackle and roll up and a guy. But you're not really having safeties coming downhill and doing too much. So,
yeah, it's tough to force gang tackle fumbles when you're like one-on-one with a safety 30 yards downfield.
That's difficult. And the safety doesn't come down. The safety just sits flat-footed.
So, it's pretty safe to assume Will Jones wasn't the reason this defense sucked last year. It was just the defense sucked because he's back this year and the defense still sucks.
Maybe, in fairness to him, maybe he's not, sometimes it takes like 18 months to fully recover.
Right. From throwing someone under the bus or like from the ACL injury.
Well, maybe he had a shoulder issue too because he threw a couple guys under the bus.
The throw.
maybe there's a hidden shoulder issue as well.
Strained his oblique as he was tossing the guy under the bus.
Yeah, this is there are linebackers are out of gaps sometimes. A couple of those big runs, you have guys trying to jump. Some of
To the outside,
some of your better players trying to jump in the wrong gaps and just get sealed, and you have somebody out there for it. But that happens, I think, when you're a guy that wants to win and you don't trust anybody else to make plays. You start to freelance a little bit. Maybe that's part of it. But yeah, there's some of these big runs that have popped. Backers should be in the gap and they jump out of it, and then you have a safety in the same gap as them. So 2 guys in one gap is not good. So it's a combination of things, and none of them are good.
But Seth, we'll at least have our weekend.
Yeah.
To do whatever we want.
I think so.
Who does Florida play this weekend?
Vanderbilt at noon tomorrow.
Okay, so it could be an interesting game. I'm sure
Vandy does some interesting stuff. Their players aren't very good, but they do some interesting things with those guys. So
that's interesting. A quick Olivia update. She is asleep already. She's having a sleepover with Samantha in our bed since I'm downstairs covering this USF game. But her charity total, her donation total, has cracked $833. So it's been pretty amazing. Absolute runaway. It's the only thing that I care about this week, and it's been a major success.
Yeah, you gotta take the wins as they come, and that's a big dub.
That's a huge dub. All right, we're probably gearing up for the second half here. Make sure you join us, I guess, for the post-game show.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. My one question: can USF get the back door?
They're down 11. The line was 14.
Can they get the back door?
Task. That is a tall task.
I think if they're getting the ball,
especially with Tulsa getting the ball in the second half, the USF's going to be down 17.
They're down 17. Yeah, they're down 18.
About 3.5 minutes. So be ready for that.
So can you trade points after that? Basically,
probably not. But stupider things have happened.
And also, have we seen what's the? I guess it wouldn't be to start a career, would it? Though, would first start though maybe most completed passes to consecutive.
I looked. I did not see a record of that in the USF annals. So
we'll just give it to him. If he hits what's he at right now? 11?
11.
I say we set the 15? Record at 30. Yeah, 15. If he hits 15, he's got the record.
Yeah, we'll call it.
We'll start our own record, but
yeah.
There we go.
All right. ESPN 2, USF second half. Oh, Lord willing. Have some fun, guys. It's Friday night. If you're watching, then you're a masochist who loves pain, and we feel for you. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.